Hi everybody, I'm Chaz DeVetter, Scott Catholic High School wrestling coach. I'm here for Technique Tuesday. I want to thank Nebraska USA Wrestling and the Scrap Lab for hosting Technique Tuesday. If you've been watching and following along, I think Georgie and Todd Manili have been showing a lot of stuff on the feet, some offense from the feet. So I think we're going to take it to the mat today and go into our Skyhawk bottom wrestling offense. So we have two rules at Scott that we really focus on bottom and getting out. It's really more about principles on bottom than moves. You know, there's a lot of moves, stand-up, switches, sit-outs, all kinds of things. We really focus on two main principles, and those principles are don't go to your belly and don't give up your wrist. So everything that we do on bottom is making sure that we're not going to our belly, or if we are, we're building our base right away, and we're not giving up our wrists. Because when we give up our wrists, bad things happen. Wrists turn into chicken wings, turn into halves, turn into turns. There's a lot of bad things that happen when we give up our wrists. So, again, two most important things. Don't go to your belly, don't give up wrists. I'm gonna show a couple skills from the bottom that are gonna help us not to do that. All right, before we get into these skills, just wanna show you what I see a lot that we feel like is not a good idea as far as getting out from bottom. So what I see a lot is there's a lot of people that have a really good stand-up. They stand up to their feet. That's a great skill. If you can get to your feet, if you're explosive and you can get to your feet, that is a great skill. One of the things I see a lot that ends up being a problem for high school, middle school, even high school kids is I see a lot of kids that are on bottom and they hear get hand control a lot. So they're down here on bottom and they're wrestling and maybe they get chopped or they first move or something like this and they're down here and they start fighting hands, right? They start grabbing hands. And one thing that can be really dangerous about that is if I start grabbing hands here, then that allows for this guy to reach through and grab my wrist. So if he reaches through, grabs my wrist, there's all kinds of stuff that guys like Cade Ziola that are dangerous can do. You know, he can go to a tilt from here. He can go to a chicken wing. He can go to all kinds of stuff. So what I don't want to see is if we don't explode to our feet, I don't want to see us trying to grab a hand down here, just hanging out trying to grab a hand, because that's where we're going to get in trouble. So the three skills we're going to work on today, they're going to keep us from just hanging out grabbing hands. The first one is called a stop the chop, and then it's a knee slide to a stand-up. The second one is a sit back or a changeover, and then the third one is a lazy man stand-up. So let's start with the first one. The first one, I get set. I'd say 85% of high school guys, when they come on top, are going to chop. Okay, so right off the whistle, go ahead. Cade's going to chop. His goal is to get me here, grab a wrist, and get to work. I don't want that to happen. So if I know that's a possibility, what I want to do is I want to circle into the chop. So some of you that do freestyle or Greco, that you know how to defend a gut wrench, it's kind of a similar idea. We're turning into it, we're not turning away. The problem is if he goes to chop, if Cade goes to chop and I start turning this way, that gives him room to bury his tight waist here and really squeeze and get it tight. So what I want to do, stop the chop, is I want to circle into it. I want to post with this hand. I want to circle into it, keep circling into it until I stop his chop, and then we're going to hit a knee slide and come to our feet. So it'll look like this. So he chops, maybe he's getting me down, I post. Instead of staying here, I'm going to circle into it. And as he keeps chopping, we're going to keep circling until we've stopped that. Once we feel comfortable, we're going to hit a knee slide, foot on the mat, pressure back, come to our feet, touch the mat right there. So again, now one of the keys to stop the chop is when he chops me, this hand right here, I've got to get it in front of me, okay? I can't leave it behind. So if he goes to chop and I stay here and I leave this wrist, I'm in trouble. So when he goes to chop, I'm posting, I'm circling, but I got to get this hand in front of my face where I can see it. Stop it. knee slide, foot on the mat. Once I get a foot on the mat, I'm gonna pressure back. Here's one other thing I wanna do. I wanna make sure when I pressure back and come to my feet, my elbows are coming in tight, okay? I'm not grabbing here, just like we talked about earlier. We're pressuring back, elbows tight, grab a hand, touch the mat. So that is stop the chop. Okay, the second skill that we're gonna do from the bottom is called a changeover. I call it a sit back, just because we're gonna pressure back, a little different than a changeover, but kind of the same idea. So we get set, top guy comes on. Now, on this skill, we are gonna drive back in. So I'm gonna take whatever side his hand's on, I'm gonna take this elbow, drive back. I'm gonna use my hands and my feet to drive into him. Now the key is when I do this, I don't wanna get stuck in the middle. I wanna get all the way to my far hip. So this is the hard part. So right off the whistle, I'm driving with pressure from my hands, my feet. I'm driving with my elbow. I gotta make sure I don't stay here. I gotta get to my far hip. If I stay here, he's gonna chop or suck back. Yep. He's gonna chop this way or suck back. So as I drive back, I've gotta get all the way across to my far hip. So it'll look like this. Drive, 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 far hip. So same thing, pressure back, drive, here, I don't stay here, keep going, far hip. This hand's on the mat. Again, we talked hand control earlier. I'm not grabbing hands here, I'm sealing. Okay, my hand control here is sealing with my elbow. From here, he's gonna be pushing into me when I feel that. I'm gonna put my knee where my hip was, and as he's still pushing in, I'm gonna push back to him. Right here. Put it away. Touch the mat. One more time. So sit back, similar to a changeover, but we're really using back pressure. So we're going to drive back, drive back, drive back. Far hip here. This hand comes here, seals tight. I use his pressure, head up. Obviously, I don't want to let him push me here. That's bad news. Okay. Head up, back straight. Put my knee where my hip was. Pressure back. The other thing that I see a lot of high school guys do is, instead of pressuring back, when they get here, they run here, and then they get taken back down, or they get run out of bounds. When we get to here, 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 we want to put a foot in the ground, hand in the back pocket, turn and touch the mat. So that is a sit back. Okay, so we just did a changeover or a sit back. Now, one thing before we go to the next skill is you have to realize a lot of times when you change over and you pressure back, the guy on top is going to pull you. If they're a leg rider or they're a crab rider, they're going to pull you into their lap, which is called a crab ride. So before we move on to the final skill, we're just going to work on sit back and how to come out of it, get our hips out of the lap when he pulls us into a crab ride. So Cade Ziola here, state champ, Scott High School. Cade comes on top. One main thing that we got to do, a lot of times when you see this, a lot of times when kids first learn it, they try to step up. Okay, that's not good. I'm putting my head behind my knee. I don't want to step up. I don't want to slide. I don't want to sit out on this one. We want to pressure back. Okay, his goal is to get the weight on my hands. My goal is to pressure back and get my weight back. So Cade comes on top. Pressure back, pressure back. This guy's a good crab rider. Or he's a good leg rider, so he sits to his butt and he pulls me into his lap. Okay? My goal in crab ride defense, to give you the quick skinny version here, is I have to get my hips either up out of his lap or down and away. So as I feel him pulling me into his lap, he wants to take me through that way until here. So what I want to do is, as he pulls me into his lap, I'm going to post on this knee and I'm going to get my hips up and out of his lap here. Out of his lap here, and then from here we're looking, usually we're going to turn towards the legs. We're looking for a leg turk, hand turk, one of those where we turn into the legs. So one more time, I'm hitting a sit back, pressure back, he pulls me into his lap. As he's trying to take me through, I'm going to post on the knee, hop my hips out of his lap. Pressure here. There it is. So that is sit back if he pulls you into the crab ride. Okay, third and final skill on the bottom where we're gonna get out, but we're not gonna fight. We're not gonna give up our wrists and fight wrists, okay? And that skill is a lazy man stand-up. So actually, I probably should have Cade show it because he's really good at this skill. But essentially, we're gonna come to our feet. Instead of fighting hands while we're on the mat, we're gonna come to a quad pod or a lazy man, and then we're gonna worry about our escape from there. So, first off, I get set depending on what side he's on. There's different ways to kind of set your feet. I think Cade was saying that he has his toe out here, which is definitely something you can do, and that's a great way to do it. Usually when I teach it, I show whatever side he's on, we're just gonna swish our foot out just a little bit. I don't know whether that makes a huge difference or not, but our goal, like we said on one of the other skills, is he's trying to chop me this way, so I got to turn into it and fight it like a gut wrench. So if Cade was on top of me trying to gut me that way, I've got to get this hip down and I've got to turn into it and fight the gut. It's the same thing with the lazy man stand-up. So when he comes on top, I figure out what side he's on. As soon as I figure out what side he's on, right off the whistle, I like to kind of, when the whistle blows, kind of lean away and swish her here, assuming he's gonna chop. So as soon as you feel that chop, now we're rotating. We're rotating here, and then we're pushing our hands back over to this foot, right? Obviously, one of the most important things we gotta do is keep our head up when we're here, and know that he could let go and cradle, okay? But it helps. If we're here, he can put a lot of weight on our hands. If I can walk my hands over to this foot here, if he's chopping, I can pivot. Okay, and that takes some of the weight off of it and allows me time to score here. So there's a few things when I get from here. One, I can just stand up and attack a hand here. That's a possibility. Another thing I can do when I'm here and he's on top, I can reach under, attack this hand, 2 hands down, circle. Circle here, that's a common one that you see. Attacking that hand to a 2-on-1, and then I have a good offensive hold also. And some guys are just so strong. Some guys are just so strong they can stand up and fight hands here, which doesn't always work. But you'll notice on a lazy man stand-up, we're not necessarily fighting hands till we start getting to our feet. One thing that's great about a lazy man stand-up is if I'm here, I have an advantage over him because he can't lock his hands, right? So usually I want to attack a hand with one hand on the mat before he can lock, because now he can't lock. If I'm here and I stand up, now he can lock and he's got that advantage. So my advantage in a lazy man stand-up is I can attack a hand before he can lock and return me the mat. So it's tricky, it's not easy, but it's a great way to get out from the bottom without giving up your wrists and without getting in a position where you can get turned. So the third and final skill today on bottom was the lazy man stand-up. I'd like to thank NEUSA Wrestling, partner Cade Ziola, and the Scrap Lab for having us, and thanks again.